Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. My guest today is William J. Federer, a nationally known speaker, best-selling author, and president of AmeriSearch. Mr. Federer has also been a Republican candidate for Dick Gephardt's U.S. House of Representatives seat on several occasions. His book, America's God and Country, Encyclopedia of Quotations, has sold over 500,000 copies, and his American Minute radio feature, recalling events of American significance on the day they occurred, is broadcast nationally on radio and television. They're also read by thousands via the internet. Bill Federer, welcome to Conversation.
Lee, great to be with you.
We've had you here on many different occasions. Last time you came here and talked about Islam and the history of Islam. This time we're going to talk more current rather than going back to the, 7th century. We're going to stay right here in the 21st, and we're going to talk about September 11th, and we're going to talk about the mosque, which is an issue that is of national importance now. Just so that everybody knows, today, the date of this show is August 24th of 2010, so that by the time this program is shown, if something's changed, please forgive us. Okay, so from your studies of Islam, which I know are extensive, what do you think that this building the mosque right there at the heart of the attack of 9/11 is all about?
Well, it is very interesting when you see the history that wherever Muslims have conquered, they have turned the most prominent spot of the area that they conquered into a mosque. And this started with Muhammad. In the year 630 AD, he marched with 10,000 soldiers to Mecca, a pagan city that had chased him out about 10 years earlier. And the Meccans open the gates, surrender the city. Muhammad goes in, orders about 10 people to be murdered, but finally turns their Kaaba, their most prominent spot, which housed 360 different pagan idols, gods. He cleans it out except for one, which was a rock that pagans had thought had fallen from the moon. Hubal was their god. Anyway, Muhammad kissed it, but he turned this building into a mosque. So the most prominent building in the city of Mecca was turned into a mosque by Muhammad. Mm-hmm. Then later, the Muslims conquered Jerusalem under Caliph Umar in the year 638 AD, and they turned the most prominent spot in Judaism into a mosque. It was the Al-Aqsa Mosque with the Dome of the Rock. Then the Muslims conquered Damascus. It was a Byzantine Christian city, and after the battle, the Caliph goes in there and turns the Church of St. John the Baptist into the Umayyad Mosque. Then they conquered Hebron and General Khalid ibn al-Walid, and they turned the second most prominent spot in Judaism, the Cave of the Patriarchs, into the Ibrahimi Mosque. That's where Abraham was buried. Then the Muslims conquered Constantinople, which was the capital of the Byzantine Empire, and they turned the Hagia Sophia, this great big church built during Roman times under Justinian, the emperor, 165 feet high, 102 foot across dome, 4 acres of gold mosaics. They were all covered over with whitewash, and it was turned into a mosque by Sultan Mehmed II. Then Sultan Mehmed II conquered Athens, and the most prominent spot was the Temple Mount. The Acropolis Hill, where on top of the hill is the Parthenon. Mm-hmm. If you've seen pictures of Athens, you see this temple sort of falling apart on the top of the hill. Well, it was in good shape when they turned it into a mosque, but that's where they stored their gunpowder. And so in the year 1687, when the Italians, the Venetians were driving out the Muslims, a cannonball inadvertently hit the mosque, hit the gunpowder, and blew it up. So that's why the Parthenon is in ruins today. Then the Muslims conquered Spain. And in Cordoba, Spain, was the Cathedral of St. Vincent, a big Visigothic Christian church. The Muslims turned it into a mosque. I could go through Syria, and even as recent as the French had controlled Algeria for over 100 years. And They had warfare, sort of guerrilla warfare, like's been going on with the IEDs there in Iraq and Afghanistan. And finally, in 1962, the French decided that the support for the war back in France had waned, and so the French brought their troops home. And so the Muslims, once the French left, they turned the most prominent spot there, St. Philip's Cathedral, into a mosque. And then unfortunately for the Jews, there was no one left to protect them, and 30,000 Jews had to flee, and their great Jewish synagogue, the synagogue of Oran, was turned into a mosque. And so it's a pattern that we can observe, that where they conquer, they turn the most prominent spot into a mosque. And if you were to pick the most prominent spot in America, where would it be? Well, probably downtown Manhattan Island, New York City. I mean, just look at the real estate prices. And that is where Wall Street is.
Now, of course, they haven't conquered. I mean, they blew up 2 buildings or caused 2 buildings to fall, but luckily they haven't conquered us. So, go ahead.
Well, the interesting thing about Islam, in America there's freedom for all religions.
Yes.
But Islam's not just a religion. It's a political system and a military system. Why? Because Muhammad was not just a religious leader. He was a political leader and a military leader.
Right.
He was a religious leader for 12 years in Mecca and only made 100 converts. So he was chased out to Medina, a Jewish city. The Jews rejected him, so he goes into the pagan neighborhoods and begins to organize them, sort of like a community organizer. Gets about 1,000 followers, goes back to the Jews and presents himself as a candidate of change. He said, look, I'm a newcomer to this city. I can rise above partisanship and these tribal politics. And they make a treaty with Muhammad. He becomes a political leader in Medina. Then some of Muhammad's followers back in Mecca get chased out too. They arrive in Medina destitute. So Muhammad permits them to rob the caravans headed to Mecca in retaliation for the Meccans chasing them out. And so he had 300 warriors. They would rob the caravans. He had a whole chapter of the Quran revealed to him from Allah on how to distribute booty from robbing caravans. Anyway, the Meccans send 1,000 soldiers to protect their caravan in the year 624 AD, and Muhammad, with 300 warriors at the Battle of Badra, defeats 1,000. So Muhammad takes this amazing victory, outnumbered 3-1, that he's supposed to be a military leader. And he goes off to fight in 66 battles and raids in the next 8 years before he dies. Muhammad even used the catapult when he attacked cities, like the city of Al-Taif. And when he was told the catapult was killing women and children, his response was, they are among them. So they got to be killed too. So suicide bombers today say it's okay to kill innocent people to advance Islam because Muhammad did. So Muhammad went through these 3 stages. He was a religious leader, then a political leader, and then a military leader. And so those wanting to imitate him, sort of like Christians have the WWJD and they want to strive to imitate Jesus' example, Muslims want to imitate Muhammad. He is the perfect Muslim. His life is called the way, the example, in Arabic called the Sunnah, where we get the word Sunni. And so as they strive to imitate him religiously, politically, and then militarily. And so a mosque is not just a religious building, it is a political and a military center. And we have a 1,400-year track record to see that. And there's no authority in Islam that can say, look, we're just going to imitate Muhammad's life when he was in Mecca and he was just a religious leader. We're not going to imitate his life when he went to Medina and he became a political and military leader. And so the fundamental ones think they are more truer following his example. And so the building of a mosque in the Muslim mindset is a staking of a claim. Mm-hmm. It is a symbol and the financial capital for America and, in a sense, the world is in downtown New York City, right around where Wall Street and the World Trade Center is.
Well, can you imagine that anybody over in Saudi Arabia or in Iran or any of the Islamic capitals could actually think that the United States of America could be an Islamic republic?
That's what they've said, yes, over and over again in their documents. Now, you have to understand.
They've said what?
That's what the Muslim leaders...
That's an aim, a goal?
That's a goal, yes. Muhammad divided the world into 2 halves. One half is called the House of Islam. That's the part of the world that is submitted to Allah. And the other half is called the House of War. It's called Dar al-Harb. And that's the part of the world that's in the process of becoming the House of Islam. So a faithful Muslim sees the world in 2 halves, Muslim and going to be Muslim. And the idea is the word Islam means submission. A Muslim is one who has submitted. And a faithful Muslim thinks there will be world peace when the whole world has submitted to the will of Allah. So where you and I think world peace is different groups that don't believe the same thing, just growing up and learning how to get along, a faithful Muslim thinks there will be world peace when the whole world submits to the will of Allah. In other words, when Islam's enemies are defeated, there's peace. There's nobody left to fight. And so a moderate Muslim thinks the world's going to submit to Allah later. Maybe at the end of the world. Maybe it's even figurative. And since it's so far off, they really don't take it that serious. It's okay for them to get along with infidels. And that's fine. That type of Muslim can live in a free democratic society. But the fundamental Muslim, on the other hand, thinks the world's submitting to Allah now. And they're very excited and they want to help make it happen. So that's the dilemma for the West. The more we bend over backwards in unprecedented ways to show ourselves tolerant of Islam, the more the moderate ones begin to rethink and say, wait a second, maybe the world is actually submitting to Allah now rather than later. And so they gravitate from the future peaceful figurative camp into the fundamental now camp, which unfortunately is the violent camp. And
well, one of the crew members and I had a discussion before this, before you came and before this all started, and he was referring to what was going on in Holland, and how that was a very Christian nation, and now a huge number of Muslims have moved into the Netherlands, and now there are demands that the law be changed in that country. Would you care to discuss that, elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, there's 3 stages and they mirror Muhammad's life. So the first stage was religious, then political, then military. So Muhammad, when he was chased out of Mecca, he needed a place to stay. He was a religious refugee and he immigrated to the city of Medina, which was a Jewish city. So the first stage is immigrate. And so then Muhammad went into the pagan neighborhoods and the discriminated minorities in Medina and begins to make converts. So the second stage is he increases the number of his followers. And then the third stage is when his political agenda was resisted, is he eliminated the previous. So 5 years after Muhammad came to the Jewish city of Medina, there was not a Jew left in the city of Medina. So he immigrated, he increased, he eliminated. And so this is what's happening in Europe. Europe's very socialist. The government pays for their health care, their welfare, their retirement, and they have, month-long holiday vacations, all this social stuff, but they're having fewer kids to pay the taxes to support all this.
That's what I was going to say, that their population, the white population or the European population, is decreasing dramatically.
Right.
Similar to what's going on in the United States, too. If it weren't for our immigration, our population would probably be going down instead of going up.
Yeah, they've embraced the global, overpopulation, so they're having fewer kids. Plus, there's abortion. And so Europeans are not reproducing themselves, so they need immigrants to come in to pay the taxes to support all these social programs. 70% of immigrants into Europe are Muslim, and they're having, on the average, 8 kids per family. Mm-hmm. And so in 20 years, there will be 100 million Muslims. I just got back from 2 weeks in Germany. 10 years ago, there were 3 mosques in Germany. Today, they're building over 200. 10% of Germany is now Turkish Muslim.
That's interesting because they don't even allow Scientology in Germany.
Right. And they have they had a meeting not long ago with over 100,000 Turks in Germany, met in a stadium, and the president of Turkey came and addressed them. And they're all waving Turkish flags, and he's saying, look, don't assimilate, don't learn the German language, you're here to take over, basically. And so they go through these 3 stages. They first ones come in, and they're nice. And
are these citizens or are these not citizens?
Well, they came in as a temporary worker status.
But are they citizens now? Do they have the same rights as someone who is a German born in Germany?
That's the dilemma that's up for debate.